Egypt is braced for another day of turmoil as the opposition is calling for its supporters to go out on the streets in the latest attempt to force President Hosni Mubarak out of office. Protesters say they want to gather about 1 million people, calling it the final Friday. Well, we can now get more on this from Paula Slier, who is in Egypt, Cairo, for us. Paula, President Mubarak has said that he's only staying on to ensure a smooth transition of power. So is that likely to do anything to quell the protests?
Well, at this moment, it does seem very unlikely that that's going to do anything to quell the protests. We're hearing people calling today Final Friday, Fury Friday, Destination Friday. Of course, all the focus and all the world's attention is on Cairo today. The plan is for protesters who've been camped out in Tahrir Square for the last week and a half to march to the presidential palace. Now, it is questionable whether, in fact, this march will go ahead. It was planned already a few days ago, and it did not materialize at that stage. The problem is, number one, the protesters will be spreading themselves out quite thin, and they'll also need to leave, number two, their stronghold there at Tahrir Square. They've been barricaded there behind concrete slabs and concrete blocks. They have their reinforcements in place. They understand the situation, and they really have a stronghold from which to work. They will be putting that into some kind of question if they call all their protesters and make that march to the presidential palace. The road to the presidential palace is lined with soldiers, with armored personnel vehicles, with jeeps. So the army very much in control and anticipating that march to take place. The protesters, for their side, have spent the night in Tahrir Square. As we're talking, the sun is slowly rising here in the Egyptian capital. People have been encouraged to come to the square. There was a night of relative calm relative to what we've seen in previous nights. There were sporadic clashes. You still have your pro-Mubarak supporters in some of the alleyways. You have your anti-Mubarak supporters in other alleyways, and you have both of them in this standoff position. The intimidation on foreign journalists has increased. A number of my colleagues have been beaten, have been arrested, have been detained. I myself was stopped at an army checkpoint late last night when we were making our way back to the hotel, and there I was held for 45 minutes as they checked my bags, as they took some of my colleagues out of the car, as they questioned me and cross-examined me. The soldiers themselves did apologize for having to do this, and they said that the situation here was such a security risk that they really could not let anybody pass around these streets. We're just 2-3 streets away from Tahrir Square right now as I talk to you. The office that we're broadcasting to you from looks like any other residential building on the outside. We've taken down all signage. We keep the doors closed. If possible, we keep them locked, because there really is the fear that journalists, particularly foreign crews, are being targeted. And last night I was prevented from going out and filming on the streets because I was told that it was simply too unsafe for me to be on those streets, and if I insisted on being on them, to make sure that I was on those streets with Egyptian nationals.
Well, Paula, tell us more about the international reaction to the most recent developments.
Well, the United States has said that it is in direct talks with Hosni Mubarak, and it is encouraging him to step down as soon as possible. One of the scenarios they've put forward is that of a military-backed caretaker government in Egypt. But the call coming out from the United States is for a transitional government to be put in place immediately. We've heard the same call come from the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, from European Union countries, but the call coming from people here on the streets of Egypt is stay out of our affairs. Egyptians criticizing the international community for meddling in internal domestic issues. And this was the message from the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. It was a message that was well received here in Egypt. Lavrov saying that the Egyptians need to decide for themselves what way they want to move forward in the future.